situations like the Darian Mensah and Duke University lawsuit is exactly why I keep telling athletes and their parents, it doesn't matter what the opportunity is if you don't understand the contract. Today, I'll be breaking down what this teaches us about NIL contracts, revenue sharing agreements, and why getting advisement before you sign contracts is a non-negotiable. Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. Really excited about today's subject. Hot topic. Something new and relevant, something that has been in the news in the last couple of weeks. So I thought it'd be a perfect time to sit down and discuss it with you guys. And, let's just talk through the different lessons that we can learn from the Darian Mensah Duke University lawsuit. Now, if you've been under a rock, and maybe not even under a rock, maybe you just don't know what's been going on. So Darian Mensah is a former quarterback of the Duke University football team. He decided that he wanted to transfer schools and let them know, like, hey, I'm out. Hey, I'm out. But guess what? He signed a revenue sharing agreement when he signed with them. Actually, he signed in 2025. He signed in July 2025. It was last summer. So he signed with them. It was a multi-year deal. It was actually supposed to expire. The contract ended in December of 2026, the end of this year. But Duke University is like, well, wait. You just trying to jump into the transfer portal? And actually, he only had 2 business days before the portal closed. They had to hurry up and file a lawsuit, basically to try to protect them being able to basically keep him from transferring or not. He had an arbitration clause in his revenue sharing agreement, and they wanted to basically be able to bring it back to arbitration. Now, he had an attorney, and they were able to basically get him back to the table. They were able to, wrap things up, and he was released to, jump into the transfer portal. Now, before we get into the lessons of this situation, and honestly, these lessons are not going to be what you think. They're like not salacious because we don't have a whole lot of information as to what happened before, maybe leading up to why he wanted to make this decision. We don't know what the payment terms, like literally I read through the 44-page lawsuit. They have payment stuff redacted. It's honestly not even relevant. It's not relevant. But we do know that we can learn some lessons from this situation. Okay? And before I get into those lessons, I really want to kind of like set some expectations. This video is not about blaming athletes. Okay? I'm pro-athlete, first of all. But this is not about blaming athletes. This is not about bashing schools. This video is not about bashing schools. So if that's what you're expecting, you might want to move along. But this video is all about education, protection, and preparation. And the lessons that you can learn from this to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. NIL is no longer about brand deals. Okay? We're seeing that schools are able to procure agreements, procure deals for athletes now. Collectives have always been a part of the conversation since the beginning. And now we have revenue sharing. And mind you, these contracts, a lot of them include performance expectations. They include term limits. They include conduct clauses. They include payment structures. They include termination language. Okay? So athletes now are entering into more business relationships than just your traditional sponsorship brand deals. Okay? These revenue sharing agreements, this is a business relationship. And let's think about it. Before, athletes were signing like their their letter of intent. They had, their terms as far as like how much they would get as far as their scholarship and all that is concerned. But I've never heard of a school filing a lawsuit against an athlete because they wanted to transfer pre revenue sharing days. I've never heard of a school filing a lawsuit against an athlete to keep them from transferring to another school. Maybe it's happened. Maybe I just don't know. But I've never seen that. So we're in a different league now. We're in a different place now. Okay? So athletes got to catch up to that. Parents we got to catch up to that. Everybody involved has to catch up to this is just not like regular, educational benefits. No. So we're in a different league now. So we need to act accordingly. So let's get into the lessons. Number 1, athletes must know what's in their contract. And I feel like people can say, oh, well, that's obvious. That is not obvious at all. Because many athletes sign quickly due to pressure. They assume that deals are standard. Like, oh, this stuff is just standard. This is kind of the stuff that I have. Like, this is stuff that goes in the contracts. This is not negotiable. They don't fully understand legal language, which is common. I mean, lay people. And when I say lay people, I mean non-lawyers. Non-lawyers a lot of times don't understand legal language. They don't understand the law works, how the law works. They don't understand like the process. They don't understand it. And that's okay. Like, it makes sense. If you didn't go to law school, you may not understand all of this stuff. And then also, they may get distracted by the dollar amount. Think about it. If you're being presented with $100,000, you can make $100,000 in the next year. Where do I sign up, right? You're just thinking like, let's sign up and go ahead and get this check in the mail, right? You might not be thinking about everything else that goes into you getting that $100,000, right? So this is really dangerous. It can be very, very dangerous. Why? Because contracts don't just control money. It controls your rights, your obligations, and your future options that you may have. So, revenue sharing agreements, they're going to include, the length of time for your commitment, conditions tied to your roster status, trigger, reductions or possible termination of the agreement. And then also your IP rights, whether it's your rights to, your rights beyond you being in school. And I think a lot of people don't realize that this is not just about now. It's about the obligations or what can be used when you're no longer a student athlete. And when I say you, I'm talking to athletes. When an athlete is no longer at this institution, whether it's because they graduated or because they transferred, or whether because they might have been injured and they're no longer playing the sport. So understand that there's a lot of stuff that goes into these contracts. But if you don't know what's in them, how do you know what your options are? How do you know how you should proceed? How do you even know regular things like, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows when they're going to get paid, but a lot of athletes don't. I've read contracts from some of my athletes, contracts that they were presented, not revenue sharing agreements in this instance, but where it didn't say like when they would get paid or what method they would get paid. It just said the dollar amount. So I don't want people to assume that athletes or even the parents automatically know what's going to be in their contracts. Okay? And I like to say, if you can't explain what's in your contract in plain language, you don't fully understand it and you shouldn't be signing it. And I mean that. And I know that it sounds very intimidating. Like, dang, I don't know what's in this contract. I don't know what this means. 9 times out of 10, most of the clauses in a revenue sharing agreement, a brand deal, whatever, they're going to be mostly the same kind of clauses. If you're an athlete, you're a parent, and you start to see these agreements over and over and over again, you're going to see a lot of the same clauses. And mind you, I forgot to say, this is going to be part 1. Part 2, I'm going to be getting more into like revenue sharing agreements and just the different things that's in the revenue sharing agreements. But this video is all about lessons. So stay tuned for part 2. Okay. They tie in very well together, where I'll discuss like the different clauses and things, and things that are kind of pop out at you that might be different from your typical NIL or your typical brand deal agreement. Okay. But I think it's important for athletes to take the time, one, to figure out like what's going to be in these contracts, and what's like the common clauses that are in contracts, but also look at the language that's in it and really take time to review it and understand it. Lesson 2, get advisement before you sign. And when you're sitting down going through these contracts and you're like, I still don't understand this, advisement comes in right here. And I'm not talking about getting advisement from Ray down the street or Miss Lucy, who used to babysit you and said that you were always going to be a star, or your uncle who just loves his nephew and would do anything for him and win all of his games. I'm talking about someone who has knowledge, experience, and can provide you competent advice. Athletes often ask for help after something goes wrong. And it's not even just athletes. Let me not even just put that on athletes. People in general. And I know this because I describe myself as like, I do proactive law. So I do areas of law like contracts. At one point in time, I did like estate plannings where I help people like with wills and powers of attorney. I do intellectual property where I help file trademark trademark applications for people to get trademark registered, copyrights as well. I do business law, so I draft contracts. I advise people before things happen. I'm proactive. But people a lot of time are very reactive. They want to come to you after things have gone wrong. And I find that this is just like, it's kind of, I want to say it's human nature. I wish that humans weren't like this and we planned a little bit more and we prepared ourselves a little bit more. But it's kind of like natural reaction, right? We don't always think about what will go wrong. When we're entering, think about it, when an athlete enters into a room and we're talking about revenue sharing, right? And we're like, okay, this is going great. You're not really thinking about what's going wrong because so many great things are in front of you. But it's important to get advisement because an advisor, a good advisor, is going to say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? They're going to bring you outside of that scenario. They're going to bring you to the future. They're going to bring to your attention different things that you just might not see. It's like having another set of eyes. Or it's like putting on glasses and you can see clearly. You may not see when they're all foggy or, it might be rose-colored glasses, right? You're seeing it through a different lens. I feel like a great advisor is going to help you see from another perspective. Also, athletes, a lot of times they rely on their friends, their teammates, or social media. They might not even be talking to their parents. They might not even be talking to the adults who may have more experience, maybe not as much knowledge, but have a little bit more experience in life. They're getting their information from their friends who may have heard, or their teammates who may have heard, or social media, which we already know that can be so unreliable, especially in this AI age. And Lord knows, we talk about like how we see these AI videos that may not even be real. And it's so hard for people to distinguish between what's real and what's not. Right? So athletes can a lot of times rely on the wrong information. And then also they can assume that the school or collective is acting in their best interest. Now I can say I have a collective and we 100% act in the best interest of our athletes. 100%. We're always trying to do what's best for them, even if sometimes it's to our detriment. We're a different kind of breed. We're a different kind of business, okay? But schools and collectives are going to act in their best interest. They're going to protect themselves. Newsflash. The school is going to protect themselves. The collective is going to protect themselves. So guess what, athletes, you need to do? You need to protect yourself. Like, you got to protect yourself. Because everybody else in that room is going to protect themselves. And again, this is not to say that people are not trying to come to the table with great options for you and a great opportunity for you that you can very well take great advantage of. But just know at the end of the day, when things go left, it's all about protecting themselves. Just like with the Duke situation. They were like, wait, you signed a contract with us. We fulfilled our obligations, but you're not fulfilling yours. That's what's in the lawsuit that they filed. We fulfilled our obligations, Darian. But you're trying to leave us before you fulfill yours. So we need to go with the process that we wrote in our contract, which was arbitration. And we need to come back to the table. So, I think that it's important for athletes to have the right advisement. You need to have an attorney who understands NIL contracts. And not even NIL contracts, understand what's in them. All attorneys are not created equal. All attorneys, while we understand different areas of law, a lot of times we have a specific area that we have way more experience in. And I'm being very careful not to say specialty, because we can't say like we specialize in stuff, because there's this whole thing around it. But have more experience and expertise in a certain area. You don't want a attorney who does workers' comp or something, unless it is applicable to the situation. In this situation, we can't even say workers' comp, because these are agreements are basically have like over and over again are saying that these athletes are acknowledging they're not employees. But as we talk about these lessons, you'll realize, ain't that very similar to, employment contract? But that's a different subject for a different day. We're not even going to get into that, okay? We can get into probably a really heated discussion about that. That might be something I go live about. They also need to have a trusted advisor who's going to slow down the process. There's so much coming at you, especially when it comes to signing this revenue sharing agreement. And things will move very, very fast. And you got to get somebody on your team that is going to slow it down for you. Slow it down for you. And then also having a parent or guardian involved in the decision is going to be very helpful. Now, understand, they may not understand everything either. For example, I met with a young man. He was graduating early from high school. 17, and he's going to a Power 5 school to play basketball. And I met with his uncle, his mother, and they were trying to, make sure that he was handling things correctly. He had his business stuff in place, and they were going about things the right way. And one of the things I told him is that things are going to come at you very, very fast. Don't allow people to make you feel like you got to be in a rush, and not like in you just taking your precious time. But don't allow people to make you feel like you just gotta do, like, go, like you gotta do everything so fast before you can really sit down and understand what's going on, or before you have time to consult your parent or an attorney, which they were coming to me about. They were coming to me trying to consult me, right? Get my expertise, my advice, my knowledge. And I also told him, if you don't understand what this stuff means, don't sign it. So what I'm telling y'all, these lessons, is what I've told another parent, another athlete. It's real. It's for real. It's not, I'm not just talking. It is for real. I think it's super important for you to stay plugged in, if you're a parent or athlete, to someone who understands, can give competent advice, but also seek out the advice. Don't just watch the videos. If something comes where you really do need the advice, don't be afraid to seek out, because I promise you, I always say this, you're going to pay on the front end or the back end, but at the end of the day, you're going to pay. And I got that from Funky.Nevo. You're going to pay. So why not, at least go into the situation with the best opportunities to succeed, right? So when it comes to this Darian Mensah, situation, I know, I'm probably 99% sure that he had somebody with him when he signed his contract. And that when he started thinking about whether he wanted to transfer or not, he talked to someone about it. And I know for sure when Duke filed this lawsuit against him, he has an attorney. And the attorney helped the lawsuit come to a speedy conclusion where Duke was able to get them back to the table, wrap things up before they cut him loose. This is not like, again, some scenario you can't apply in real time. This is an example of where somebody had counsel and it served to their benefit, especially because he was on a time clock. He had a very short window because that transfer portal was about to close, and they've changed the rules when it comes to transfer portal and like when it opens. That's another conversation. It's a lot more limiting. The timeline is different now. So he had to make some moves very, very quickly. I'll say this: speed can be the enemy of smart contracts. It might be a good contract, but it always can be better. And sometimes speed can get in the way. Another lesson: revenue sharing changes the game. Revenue sharing is changing the game, y'all. Y'all have to understand, athletes and parents, y'all got to understand that revenue sharing, this is not your typical agreement. It's also not guaranteed money the way people think it is. Okay? Athletes must ask themselves, is this pay for play or is this NIL? What happens if I transfer? What happens if I get injured? What performance metrics are being tied to payment? Because there are a lot of contracts that are tied to your performance. Again, I say, this kind of sounds like an employment contract because it sounds very similar to like the coach's contract. Y'all seen where the coaches, when they go to the tournament, they win the championship, they get more money. That is like talked about so much, right? I bet you're going to start to hear, oh, you might not hear about the money, the amount that's getting paid, but you probably could hear, oh, such and such went to the bowl game. They're going to get a payment. We don't know how much it is, but we know they're going to get some more money. And also your performance of whether you did well that season versus maybe, you didn't perform at your highest level. Maybe you did great. Your revenue sharing may fluctuate because it's not supposed to. But we're seeing that in these agreements. Also, could the agreement be restructured or terminated? Again, maybe you didn't perform the best, and next season they're like, we need to drop you down. Because again, if schools have your name, have the license to use your name, image, and likeness, if you're not as marketable as you were at one point in time, that means they may not make as much money. So why would they want to provide the same amount or more money to you if you're not more marketable to them? So you have to think about it from that perspective too. But if you're winning, you might be actually doing your thing outside of who you are as an athlete. You might have like a whole other brand presence that actually brings attention to you as an athlete. So it may put you into a marketability standpoint that is completely outside of your performance. That may allow you to bring it back to the table like you want more money, or asking that you want more money, because you're doing your thing over in this realm right here. So, it's a lot of different way that this could go. But you have to think about the fact that an athlete's NIL could be utilized in so many different ways beyond when they attend the institution. And like I said, in part 2, we're going to get into the different terms. But, a license, granted, will allow a school to use your NIL. Some will limit it. Some schools don't go so far. Other schools is like, we're going to try to milk this for as much as we can get. And in a lot of the agreements, it's saying that the athletes won't get royalty for royalties for that continued use. So you get that payment while you're in school. It might be one payment, who knows, like whatever the payment is. But every time they continue to use it in the future, you're not going to get paid for that. So again, coming to the table, understanding your value, it just changes the game. And when it comes to negotiating this is not just what school I'm going to go to, whether no, you have to think about it way more from a long-term perspective. So key points would be revenue sharing contracts may look attractive up front, but have long-term consequences. And you want to understand also that they can limit your flexibility and future options. Okay. So this is where athletes have to stop thinking like players, but start thinking like business owners. It's time to switch the mindset. It's time to shift the mindset, because these institutions are going to act accordingly, and they are not going to wait for you to catch up to them. You gotta, it's time for athletes to switch. Lesson 4, don't let pressure make the decision. And this goes back to the situation I was referring to when I was advising this young man and his mom and his uncle. Well, really, I was talking to him, but they hurt me. And I'm talking about, when it comes to pressure, not just about signing the agreement from like the school. I'm talking about social media pressure. I'm talking about, like, again, in this situation with the Darian Mensah situation, this was transfer portal urgency. So you got that time clock, like you got to move of if you want to go to another school or not, you're trying to go to another school, but you're stuck in this revenue sharing agreement with your present school, and what will happen and all this other stuff. Fear of missing out. You may feel like, if I don't move quick, this is not gonna be here anymore. This is a time crunch, that if you don't move forward, it'll maybe never come again. Also, family expectations. You know, us a lot of athletes that are like first generation college students. We still have that. We still have first generation college students. We still have college students who are coming from, different socioeconomic background. And I can only imagine the type of pressure that they feel when they possibly looking at these agreements of accepting this money, because they got to send it back home. They got to take care of mom, grandma, aunts, like whoever may have been raising them. Maybe they're not even that they have to take. Maybe the family is not putting pressure on them, but maybe it's something that they expect that they should do. They have to help out. They have to help out to maybe alleviate or, relieve some of the constraints that are put on their families. But then also sometimes it's their own needs. Maybe they are coming from a home where the parent can't afford, or the guardian can't afford to send them extra money, or can't afford to get them this and that. And they're now put into a situation where they need money now. And we've seen those situations, those scenarios where we've seen athletes get taken advantage of, and it turns out that they signed away their rights for a really long time. They not even that they signed away their rights. They allowed someone to contract to get a percentage of their income for a very long period of time if they went to the pros. So, it's not even just family; it's their own, needs and expectations. So remember that a rushed signature can cost more than a missed opportunity. And I believe what's for you is for you. And sometimes there are once in a lifetime opportunities, but I also believe I'm a spiritual person. I also believe that God he'll spin the block. That opportunity may come back around. It may come back in a different form, but something may come back around. If it's for you, I do believe that. But then I also believe that there has to be a balance between moving fast and moving too slow, and being indecisive. Okay. Also, alignment should be greater than urgency. Just because you have agreement in front of you, have you had time to evaluate it to see if it's really in alignment with what you should be doing? Or is the terms in alignment with what you really want? What's your goals? Like what you have in mind for yourself? And also, I think that the right deal should still be there after review. If people want you bad enough, if a company wants to deal with you, maybe if a school wants to deal with you bad enough, it'll be there after you finish reviewing it. So again, don't allow pressure to be put on you to make decisions that are not in your best interest. So key takeaways are: you need to make sure you read every clause. You got to know what's in this contract. You got to understand the revenue sharing implications. You got to understand what's in the contract. What's the consequence of this contract? What are my obligations? What are the school's obligations? What am I signing away now that could affect me in the future? You got to get advisement early. You have to ask uncomfortable questions. You got to ask uncomfortable questions. You also need to protect your long-term brand and career. You have to see this as a process. You have to understand that your athletic career is short-term, whether it's 1 year, whether it's 5 years, whether it's 10 or 15. It's not going to last forever. So you have to be able to see yourself outside of just now and think about the future. And, you want to make sure that you're making the decision not for just today, but also for tomorrow. And know that you have more options. There are way more options. But you got to play your hand right today, because some of those options may not be available in the future, or may be available in the future if you move in a different way. So if you're a parent or athlete, please make sure you take heed to these lessons. If you're unsure about how prepared you are to navigate NIL, these revenue sharing agreements or whatever, I encourage you to take my athlete NIL and brand assessment. It will help you understand where you stand, what you need, and then how you can move forward with confidence. It is absolutely free. The link is in the description box. So please take it, figure out where you're at, where you stand, please. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and actually also share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. I hope you got some good information from it. These lessons matter. And until next time, I'll see y'all in the next video.